What you're about to hear is rated R for real and not PG for playing games. Your ideas are worth billions, but you can't call the police if someone steals them. If you're having an issue or you want to license your brand, contact my office. For an attorney that operates with urgency, keeps you informed, and can relate to you, contact my office. Engage diligence. Hello. This is Attorney Don Dennis. I hope all is well with you. It's a pleasure to be here once again. And as you may have saw from the title, we're talking about the complexities of contracts. We all are in some form of contract, whether it's with your cell phone, whether it's when you bought a car or anything else from a store, we all have entered into a contract. So again, my name is Attorney Don Dennis. The purpose of this video is for educational purposes only. No attorney-client relationship is formed with my office unless there is a signed agreement on file between the two of us. Before becoming an attorney, worked as an engineer throughout Los Angeles for over a decade and also been practicing law for over a decade. So I bring this unique experience to you to give you insight in a myriad of topics. And the goal of this channel is to help viewers protect their income and make the right decisions with respect to business transactions. The reason that we're having this discussion tonight is because so oftentimes, if you look online, social media, or if you talk to people, they're very quick to tell you about all of their successes, all the great things that have occurred when they, do things and accomplish things in life. However, oftentimes people do not tell you about the problems they had. They don't tell you when things don't always go right. And for Crip Mac to share the fact that he's had some challenges and he's currently experiencing some challenges, I really have to take my hat off to him because I myself have been in similar circumstances throughout life. So, how do these types of things happen? How do people get in these types of contracts? Oftentimes, it's very simple. You're meeting with someone, you're talking about a potential business deal, and what do they say as you're trying to read or take your time and understand something? Just sign here. Come on, we can get this done with, you understand what's going on. Just go ahead and sign. Just go ahead and initial right here. I mean, basically, all this writing that you see on this paper really doesn't mean anything. It's really simple. The bottom line is just sign here. Everything will be okay. Don't worry about it. You don't have to read all this stuff. Everything's okay. Or, or they say, don't bother reading it. I'll summarize it. I'll tell you what it's all about. Or they might say, hey, if you're looking at it, say, hey, this looks a little weird. I'm not quite certain. And you have some questions in your mind. You have that thought of hesitancy. Should I really do this? Is this how these contracts look? And oftentimes you're taking advice from a salesperson or someone that wants you to sign a contract, someone that's going to benefit from you signing that contract. And they'll say, oh, this is just our standard agreement. Go ahead and sign it. I myself can understand Crip Mac and other people, maybe even you watching right now, having signed bad contracts or signed bad deals and been stuck in certain situations for different periods of time in life. Years ago, when I was young, I used to drive by the Chevy dealership on La Brea near the Grove in LA. And at this time, they had a 96 Impala SS on the showroom floor right next to the window. So when you're driving down La Brea, you look dead at it. And I knew that it was a limited edition. They only made them for a couple years. They were going to stop making them. I saw one in the window. So one night I was thinking about it. You know how it is when you really want something, when you really want that car, you want to buy this outfit or something, it just stays on your mind. So one night I said, I'm going to get it. Went up there, it was green, and the rest other ones were black or burgundy. It was green, it was nice, floor shifter, pristine condition, and actually was used, had just a couple thousand, just a little over 2,000 miles on it. I go in there, I say, look, I need this car. I don't want anyone else to get it. I know it's rare. And they're like, sure. And you know how it is sometimes when you go to dealerships, they're trying to run your credit with a million different people. They're trying to find you all kind of interest rates. They're trying to do this. They're trying to prolong it, tell you they're looking into this, looking into that. So I end up leaving, being the last person to leave the dealership. I get the car. I'm happy. I'm racing down La Brea. I'm racing down Wilshire, enjoying myself. And a few days later, I said, well, let me look at all this paperwork they gave me that I, shoved in the glove compartment. I pulled the paperwork out. I have an interest rate over 12 or 13%. I'm paying all these fees. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know all this. Okay, well, I'll try to make that work. I'm going to have a good job. I'll try to make it work, do what I have to do. Then, for some reason, even though I have a warranty, I start having problems with the car. Out of the blue, the AC and the heater stopped working properly. Brand new car, basically. Out of the blue, the rim cracks on the inside. Out of the blue, the engine mounts break. A whole bunch of issues just kept happening. Now, here's the deal. Yes, it's under warranty, but you're losing time and money driving back to the dealership, having them fix it, having to wait and drive a rental car around while your car is waiting on parts, things of that nature. And so after a while of doing this for months and months and months, I had a file this big full of the slips they give you when you go to the dealership with the repair orders. And even though I'm not paying for it with money, I'm paying for it with my time, and time is money. And everyone knows that if you work, or even if you have your own business, time is money. And so I'm like, at a certain point after a year or so or two, I don't remember, it's like, this car, I don't even know if it's worth it. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I'm having a good time, but is it really worth going through all of this stuff because of this car? So I started looking over paperwork and seeing, how can I get out of this contract? Can I make the dealership buy it back from me? Well, technically, I didn't fit the criteria of the lemon law, so that wasn't going to work. So what options do I have? So basically, I was stuck. I was stuck in an agreement, a contract with the dealership, with General Motors, and I couldn't get out of it on my own. I couldn't get it out of it through the contract, and I ended up selling the car. However, I say that to say most people in life have a period of time where they sign an agreement and it's not exactly what you thought, or they sign an agreement that's good and things don't go as planned. And it happens to everyone. So I don't feel anyone should look down on a person that is experiencing these type of difficulties that can happen in life. So a little bit of background. Crip Mac is a YouTube sensation. He's known probably all over the world, had a channel let me just back up a moment. I have not seen his contract. I have not read it. I have not spoken with him or his team. However, based on the videos that have been going out online, I was able to learn by hearing from him what he had to say about the situation. Nevertheless, a big time YouTube sensation, a guy that looks like he has a great heart. He's on videos giving out to the homeless, doing things he does not have to do, being friendly with people. And he's saying his complaints right now is that his YouTube channel that had hit almost 270,000 subscribers was taken from him. And it was taken from him based on the contract that he stated he signed, and that he said it was a bad contract. Now, when you have a large YouTube channel, what that can equal or equate to is a nice stream of income. In addition, it equates to publicity, marketing. So if you have other products or projects you want to promote or sell, it's an easy platform for you to work with, and you built that up. Also, it gives you leverage. So if you're negotiating or if you're going to other deals with people, the fact that you have a large following can help bolster your bargaining position, which I'll get into later. So in his videos where he's talking about the current contractual problems he has, he talked about the idea of possibly breaking his contract because it wasn't legitimate. This is a contractual remedy that sometimes people pursue. In addition, he talked about maybe reaching out to YouTube, getting attorneys, engaging in negotiation, things of that nature. So these are just options that he's just brainstorming and talking about as he's trying to rectify this matter. Again, I have not read the contract. This is my thoughts on this evening are about contracts in general and about the comments that he's made, because we all can definitely learn a lot from the advice and the truth that he was telling. So in general, if you the difference between an agreement and a contract is a legally enforceable agreement. Any one or two people can agree on something, but the difference is a contract is legally enforceable, meaning that you can enforce it in a court of law or an arbitration proceeding or something else based on maybe the terms of the contract. Now, everyone, for the most part, and a lot of people, I'm sure someone you know has been in a situation where they've had a business dispute, where things didn't work out. When you're going through that type of dispute, how do you feel? You're upset because you're losing time having to deal with this, the time that you could be devoting to something else. You're bothered because you're losing money sometimes over the course of the deal because you can't continue your normal course of business. And also, if you do have a business and you're going through a dispute, you're wrestling in your mind with maintaining your composure, maintaining your professionalism, so that if the business is suffering in one aspect, you can continue to maintain it in another. And all of these things are going through your mind simultaneously. So let's talk about some of the truths that Crip Mac shared with respect to contracts. Because although he's not an attorney, he said a lot of important information that we all can benefit from. First and foremost, he said, get a good and knowledgeable attorney. If you have a problem with your heart, if you have high blood pressure, you're going to go to a cardiologist. You're not going to go to an eye doctor. Yes, they both are doctors. They both have medical degrees. They both attended medical school and have been trained. However, they're specialized in different areas of the body. So when Crip Mac said, get a good and knowledgeable attorney, what that means is you're going to need an attorney that specializes in business transactions. If you're buying real estate or doing a large commercial development, you would need a real estate attorney. If you're filing bankruptcy, you need a bankruptcy attorney. You don't want an attorney that does not specialize or have experience in what field you need to transact business in. And so what he said is 100% the truth. In addition, once you find that attorney, I want to add on to that what he stated. You have to make sure you are in agreement with that attorney and you're going to trust that attorney's advice, because you're going to be forming a partnership with that attorney. Think about it. You're going to be working with that attorney for the length of time it takes to do the deal, for the length of time it takes to do the transaction, for the length of time it takes to do your court case if you're going to court from start to finish. And as you'll know from some of my other videos, that process is not an immediate process. This process can go on for months or sometimes even years. So you have to make sure you're with an attorney and you two team up, can be in agreement, and you can trust that attorney for what you're doing. So how do you find, as a side note, how do you find an attorney based on the type of matter that you're dealing with? Well, one thing that he talked about is talk to other people, see do they know someone, basically get a referral. That's always great, because if you have someone that's working for an attorney, they had a great experience, that's a great way to find someone. In addition, bar associations throughout the country, in almost every major city there's a bar association. So there might be the New York Bar Association, the Los Angeles Bar Association, the Portland Bar Association, the Houston Bar Association. All of these bar associations typically have referral lines. You can call that association, tell them the type of problem, and say, look, I need an attorney that specializes in this area. And they can provide you referrals of people that you can reach out to, have a conversation with, and determine whether or not that's someone you want to work with. Also, now once you find attorneys, you want to analyze to make sure they're in good standing. The same way that restaurants have grades on the front of the restaurant, an A, B, C, or D, to let you know that the health department has come there and whether or not they're in good standing, they keep the kitchen clean. Attorneys can have ratings somewhat also. One website that rates them is called AVVO, AVVO. You can look your attorney up on there. In addition, I always advise people to go to the state bar's website of the attorney that you're looking to work with. and make sure that that attorney has not been suspended. Make sure that attorney has not been disciplined for matters that are completely unacceptable to you. So you want to do a little research on your own before you just automatically sign up with an attorney. So moving on, what else did we learn with respect to what Crip Mac was saying about his matter? Another thing that you need to know when you're looking at a contract, who are the parties in the contract? Who are the people whose names are listed on the contract that have authority to do business? If it's just you and you're not authorizing anyone else to make decisions on your behalf or to do anything else with respect to the contract, provide services or provide products, then your name should be the only name on that contract on your side. And whomever else you're doing business with on the other side, you want to make sure that those individuals' names are listed. Sometimes you can enter into a contract with one person, or so you think you are, and then you get to the terms, and it might be a completely different company. And they might say, oh, this is the parent company, or there's another company involved in this. You need to know who you're doing business with and who's authorized to make decisions and transact business in the contract. Second of all, what is the term of the contract? How long is this contract going to be in effect? Is the contract going to be in effect 1 year, 2 years, 10 years? Mortgages are typically, when you're buying a home, you talk about a 30-year mortgage, which is like a 30-year contract where you're agreeing to pay money for a certain period of time. If you're buying a car, oftentimes that might be a 5-year or 6-year contract. So if you're doing business, for example, especially in entertainment, those can be multi-year contracts, or they can be, annual contracts, but they might have an automatic renewal term. So at the end of the first 1 year or 2 years or whatever, the contract will automatically renew. If you're in favor of that and you don't have a problem with that, that's fine. But if you do, you need to point that out and make sure you don't agree to that unless the proper terms are in there to support what you want. Meaning that if you're doing a contract with someone and they're going to pay you for your services every year, and as time goes up, you want to make more money. You don't want to get paid, if you're getting paid $100,000 or $50,000 for the first year, the next year you want an increase, or you have to negotiate or make sure you draw these things out and point it out and make sure it's memorialized in writing. Otherwise, you're stuck with what you agreed to. And sometimes changing the contract can cause a lot of problems. In addition, another important thing that Crip Mac emphasized was reading the contract. You have to read the contract, and you have to read it before you sign it, because once you sign it, a lot of times it's hard to get out of it or to change things, or you have to go to court. Not reading a contract and hoping everything is going to be okay is like going to Venice Beach when it's 90 degrees in the middle of the summer, not having a shirt on, going swimming with no suntan lotion on, and staying out there hanging out all day, and then going home later hoping that you're not going to have a sunburn. You're taking a lot of chances, and you don't want to take chances with your body, as I said, getting a sunburn, and especially you don't want to take chances with your income. But the thing is this, how many of us, we may look at Crip Mac and say, oh, look at him, he didn't read his contract, he should have read it. How many people right now watching this video have read the terms of use agreement when they go on websites and buy things? How many people have read the cell phone agreement when they tell you, hey, look, we're updating our terms on your cell phone, or we're updating a privacy policy, and it won't let you do anything until you click I agree, and you have to scroll to the bottom and then click it. Did you really take the time to read that? That company could have put anything in that agreement. They could have put, you owe them an extra $50 a month, or you're going to pay an annual surcharge of $500 or $1,000. If you'd never read it, you are in the same situation where you're signing and agreeing to contracts that you've never read. And we could go on and on about contracts we all have been victim to, or have been in situations where we haven't read them, such as buying a car or signing a credit card application. Have you really read all the terms of that contract? Another thing he talked about was getting educated and researching terms and other clauses inside of a contract. How many people take the time to really know all the terms that are in that contract? Have you ever read a contract and you run across a word and it just looks like legalese and you skip over it? Did you take the time to grab a dictionary, look it up? Did you take the time to ask someone that didn't work for the salesperson or the other party that you're working with what this really means? If you didn't, you can benefit from what he has said about educating yourself and taking the time to research. Ask as many questions as possible before you sign, because a lot of times after you sign an agreement, those same salespeople hand you off to someone else, or the marketing department hands you off to someone else at the company, and it's hard to get answers. It's hard to follow up, and it just complicates things, and you go home frustrated and upset. Another thing, that years ago there was a song with Nate Dogg singing, "I don't like to dream about getting paid." No one, if you're doing a business, if you're a transaction, and you're engaged in something, you don't want to wonder about when you're going to get paid. You don't want to wonder about the terms of that. Crip Mac likes to call it increments, his increments. When you're looking at contracts, they use different terms as to how they denote financial payments. Sometimes it will say cash. Sometimes it will say profit participation, revenue, royalties. A whole host of words can be used, but at the end of the day, it's talking about the payments that you're going to receive. And you have to be crystal clear on what those payments are and when you're going to get those payments. In addition, you have to know, and it has to be clear in the agreement, how you're going to get those payments. Are you going to get them in the form of a check? Is it going to be a direct deposit? Is it going to be in cryptocurrency? You need to know with certainty about that, because if you are being paid to provide a service, you don't want to have to spend your time hunting people down, trying to make sure your money is correct in accordance with the contract. So you have to be knowledgeable about that. In addition, a lot of times in entertainment deals, the money that's made is based on royalties or profit participation, which could be a percentage. So for example, if you're doing a deal and you're going to get 10% or 50%, let's go with the 50%. If you're going to get 50%, that means that based on how it's defined in the contract, whatever money is made, if $1 million is made, you're entitled to $500,000. If $1,000 is made, you're entitled to $500. And that's very clear, and that's very easy to keep up with. But when you look at many of the contracts, you don't always get a straight percentage like that. You get a percentage of payment after deductions, after money is taken out. So if that company you're doing business with has to provide you a wardrobe for whatever project you're working on, most likely they're going to deduct for that. If they have to do hair and makeup, they might deduct from that. If they have to do lighting and camera equipment, they might deduct from that. And they might say you'll receive 50% of the net profits, which is net means just like a net that you catch fish in. After everything else falls out, whatever's left, we'll split that up. And so you want to know that, or am I, whatever percentage that I'm going to be entitled to, whatever payment I'm going to get, is it going to be off the top or is it going to be net after all these deductions are made? And it's very important. That could be, there are situations in several movie projects that have happened, big name film blockbusters, in which the film generated millions and millions of dollars, and someone was entitled to a percentage of the net. And when they got done doing the accounting and the accounting was all completed, the net was zero because of all the deductions. So you have to know that, and you have to discuss that and deal with it up front. Otherwise, you will be greatly disappointed at what you're entitled to. In addition, another thing that he brought up was negotiation of the terms. So how does that work? A lot of times, entertainers and business people talk to who they want to do business with, and they negotiate the major deal points. Okay, you're going to do this movie. Okay, you're going to do this YouTube video. We're going to pay you, $10,000, $20,000, and that's it. But there are so many other terms in a contract that mean a lot. For example, one term might be your payment schedule. Someone could put in that contract that, yes, you're going to get $20,000, but you're not going to get that for 6 months, or we only pay out once a year. Well, obviously, that might not be agreeable to you. So after you negotiate the major terms, then you have to also look to negotiate even the other terms. Maybe they're minor to the overall goal of what you're trying to get accomplished, but you have to know about that and you have to discuss it. So you want to go through these things. And as you read the contract, you get a copy of it and you forward it to your attorney, or if you can handle it, you read through it and you make notes of things that sound okay to you or things that you want to suggest need to be changed so that they're more favorable to you. It's extremely important. Now, you have to also be honest with yourself, and your attorney should be honest with you to talk to you about what is your bargaining power. How much power do you have when you're entering into these types of agreements? For example, if you have 1 million subscribers on YouTube and you're going to a studio in Hollywood to negotiate about a movie deal, they likely are going to accord you more respect and give you an opportunity to negotiate terms in your favor, as opposed to if you only have 1,000 subscribers, because your bargaining power is low. So you have to know how much bargaining power that you have entering into a deal. In addition, if you're entering into a deal and you're willing to put up some of the money for production or some of the other money that it's going to cost to make the deal go through, you have a higher bargaining power than if you're entering into a deal and you're relying on the other party to make everything happen and you're only bringing your talent to the agreement. So these are important things that you have to know. Again, I encourage everyone, please hit that like and subscribe button. Also hit the notification bell so that you'll know when we go live, because we're providing valuable information that is extremely beneficial. Now, after you identify the issues, this is extremely important, and you've negotiated with another side, and they're willing to give, and you're willing to get terms in there that you like, that are agreeable to you, what is the next step? The next step is that you go back and read the agreement again. Sometimes, despite people telling you orally that everything is okay, they agree to your change in terms, they don't always implement and incorporate those changes in the agreement. So you might, it might be by mistake or it might be on purpose. So you want to make sure you check and make sure those changes are made before you go ahead. I believe that's Vanessa Dorr. Hello to you. Thank you for being present. So that is extremely important. You have to make sure whatever understanding that you have with someone in these agreements, it makes it from not just the conversation, but it makes it all the way into the paperwork, and you look at it carefully before you sign it. So now we've talked about some of the important things that Crip Mac shared. Now let's talk about what happens when a contract is broken. Well, oftentimes the contracts, typically a lot of the bigger contracts, a lot of contracts dealing with large amounts of money, have some type of dispute resolution paragraph in that contract where it talks about what's going to happen if there's a problem, whether we can go to court, whether we have to go to arbitration, whether we have to go to mediation, what's the order in which you have to do these things. Whether you can, it's where sometimes it will say we can go to court or we can go to mediation, and it has to be in the county, Los Angeles County, New York County, San Francisco County. That's important too, because you don't want to have this type of term in the agreement and you live in Los Angeles County and now you have to go to New York to defend the agreement or to bring up your complaint. So nevertheless, that's back on negotiation. But if the agreement or contract is broken, then you have to figure out how you're going to resolve it. It's sometimes a lot easier if you can negotiate with someone, have a discussion. So if the contract doesn't say, if it allows for negotiation or mediation, that is often a cheaper, less time-intensive process to resolve the matter. And sometimes there's a difference of opinion, there's a misunderstanding, and things can be worked out if everyone is willing to act in a professional manner and come to the agreement of, we'll get into what state is. So the question is, may I ask what state is good to open up a business? It depends on the type of business that we're talking about. Each business has, each state has different incentives for different types of businesses. For example, Last year, a lot of states were encouraging people, since they were all working remotely, they were encouraging people to go to the Midwest or to go to places far out of like Colorado or Idaho, and they'll give you a tax incentive like $20,000 or $10,000. Whereas if you're doing filming, certain states have all types of film incentives, like state of California has film incentives, and New York has some, and Atlanta has some. That's why there's been a large proliferation of filming. So that really depends. But back to what we were saying, if in fact you've tried to negotiate with someone, you've tried to mediate the issue with someone, now what's left? Likely you're headed to court. However, you have to think carefully before you go to court. Do you have the mental wherewithal and the financial resources to engage in a court fight? And it is a fight. It's a fight like a boxing match. A boxer that's going to get in a heavyweight fight needs to have boxing trunks, needs to have a mouthpiece, needs to have been trained, needs to have people in his corner to support him in between rounds, to give him water, to put grease on his face, and to to be there the entire 12 rounds. If you can't afford, or if you don't have the wherewithal mentally to withstand all that's going to go on in that match, in this court fight, the entire process, which could take years based on like the court's backlog right now, then it might not be advisable for you to go to court. Also, if you don't have the money to pay your attorney's fees for this whole process, it might not be advisable for you to go to court. So the same way a boxer has to be in shape, you have to be in shape and have everything you need if in fact you decide to go to court. Now, let's talk about some things that you shouldn't do. I have helped a lot of clients through some very rough patches in terms of contract disputes in a variety of industries. And with my years of experience in that, I have a few tips of things that you should not do that do not make the situation better. First and foremost, don't go on social media talking about the other side. If in fact you do that and you do end up in negotiation or mediation with the other side, that often bothers people. It messes with their feelings, and it can cause a barrier in terms of trying to get to an agreement, because now they're spending time because their feelings are hurt, or they don't like the way you said a certain thing, and they might not want to agree to terms that are common sense, things that it's most logical for them to agree to, just because they're upset. So, don't do that. In addition, in a lot of agreements, you have to check and be careful. It may say there's a non-disparagement clause in that agreement, meaning that you can't make posts and comments that are negative or defamatory towards someone, whether you say it orally or whether you post it online. That right there could put you in breach of the agreement. Also, another thing not to do let's just say another thing that you do want to do and not do is not make sure you have a clear record of what's going on. You have to keep documentation. It has to be clear, because if you're going to court, you have to be able to pull up your documents and your evidence and show it to a judge or a jury, people that don't know anything about you. And if you have nothing but a bunch of scribbly notes, if your papers are unorganized, if they're tore up, if they don't look proper, then it's going to reflect poorly on you. And you want to put forth your best possible foot and be seen in the best possible light as you move forward to prove your case and try to prevail in the matter. I advise people all the time, and I know things are more lackadaisical now. I know people are just eager to get going. Sometimes they don't want to hire an attorney because they're excited. They want to make things happen. So they'll engage in agreements through text messages or through direct messages on social media or Instagram or Facebook. That's not good, because it's often hard to follow along as to what was going on, especially if you look at it many times when people have direct messages or text messages, they start talking about something else. One minute they're talking about the contract, the next minute they're talking about going to dinner, they're talking about hanging out. And it's just very hard for someone that does not know you, does not know what was in your mind, does not know what was in the other person's mind, to figure all this stuff out and clearly understand what's going on. and be able to say, okay, well, I can print up 30 text messages, put it together, and I think I understand what the contract was about. That's not good. So you don't want to do that. And lastly, what you don't want to do is try to get into a complex area of law by yourself without a knowledgeable attorney. It's almost a must that you do that. I mean, if you're dealing with something, a transaction is $500, $1,000, or something like that, an agreement and spending money, wasting money with an attorney might not be necessary. But if you're trying to operate as a legitimate business owner, if you take what you do seriously, you want to have a properly prepared contract. Or if you're presented with a contract, you want someone to look over it. It's much cheaper to spend a couple $1,000s at most having an attorney look over your agreement, make sure it best suits you, and negotiate that agreement, which includes going back and forth and verifying that everything that is in the that was supposed to be in the agreement is in there, than spending $40,000, $50,000 or more because the agreement was broken and the agreement did not include a lot of things that you needed. A lot of times, in addition, agreements are not clear. There are not clear definitions of words that mean a lot. I gave a lot of explanation concerning profits and money and how deductions could be taken out, and you might not really understand it. Well, if it just says, for example, you're going to get 20 or 50% of the net profits, well, what is net? What deductions are going to be taken out? If it's not defined, now that's something that you have to go to court and get an explanation of. However, having the right attorney on your side could have helped you define that up front so there's no misunderstanding. I can't stress enough the importance of hiring an attorney that is knowledgeable in your area of law that you're doing business. I do not do everything. The same way I said an eye doctor is not best suited to perform heart surgery, to work as a dentist, no attorney typically is knowledgeable in every area of law. However, you're looking for someone that will be honest with you and say, look, this is my specialty. This is not my specialty. This is my area of expertise. This is not my area of expertise. That's so important. And being honest with your clients is invaluable because it lets them know that you can trust them. You guys can work together carefully. So if you think about it, if you've driven from LA to Vegas and you're in Vegas and you're trying to come back to Los Angeles, typically people that go out there for the weekend, they come back on Sunday morning. Well, or they come back on Sunday. You make a decision. Are you going to come back early in the morning and avoid traffic, or are you going to relax and sit in traffic? It's the same way. Either way, you're going to get back, but it's the same way you think about hiring an attorney. Are you going to hire an attorney that knows what they're doing, can show you the right way to go, the right time to go, and how to execute and get you back in a time that you want to be back in? Or are you going to hire an attorney that's licensed, knows how to practice law? However, it might take a little bit longer to get you to your desired goal. I encourage you to hire the right attorney. I encourage you to pay careful attention to all the valuable tips that Crip Mac gave, that I gave, to help you make the best possible decision moving forward in the contracts that you sign. I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. I appreciate you for patronizing the channel. I ask that you please hit that like and subscribe button. Please share this channel with others so that I can continue to help as many people as possible. I wish you all the best. And if you do need legal services, feel free to reach out to my office at 213-455-0880. And check out my YouTube channel for other videos that can definitely benefit you. Have a great evening.